September 1979. A 15-year-old kid named Tyrone lies dying on a South LA street, blood pooling beneath him. His crime? Getting into a fair one, a fist fight after school. Nothing unusual in the hood. Happens every day. But what happened next would tear apart the most powerful gang alliance in Los Angeles history and create a war that's still claiming lives today, over 45 years later. This is the untold story of brotherhood betrayed, of a conflict so devastating it split the entire Crip organization down the middle and forced every gang in LA to pick a side. Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips versus Eight Tray Gangster Crips. Brothers who once fought side by side, now hunting each other through the same streets they used to protect together. By the time this war ends, if it ever ends, hundreds will be dead. Mothers will bury their sons. Children will grow up without fathers, and innocent people will pay the ultimate price for a beef they had nothing to do with. What you're about to hear is raw, unfiltered, and absolutely true. This is the story of LA's first Crip-on-Crip war. Welcome to American Gang War TV. Before we dive in, let me be crystal clear. The content you're about to hear contains graphic descriptions of real violence and criminal activity. This video is for educational and historical documentation purposes only. We do not glorify, promote, or condone gang violence in any form. The stories shared here are based on court documents, witness testimonies, and first-hand accounts to preserve this important piece of American history. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because American Gang War TV brings you the most in-depth gang documentaries you won't find anywhere else. We're talking real stories, real history, no Hollywood dramatization, just the raw truth about America's gang culture. Now let's get into it. To understand this war, you need to understand where these gangs came from. We're talking about the 1970s, when Los Angeles was becoming the gang capital of America. Two men laid the foundation for everything that would follow: Tookie Williams and Raymond Washington. Tookie Williams established the original West Side Crips. This man was a force of nature, building an organization that would change gang culture forever. On the other side, you had Raymond Washington forming the original East Side Crips. These weren't just neighborhood crews hanging on corners. These were structured organizations with hierarchies, codes, and serious power. From these roots, dozens of Crip sets emerged across South Los Angeles, and among them, two would rise to become absolute powerhouses: the Rolling 60s Neighborhood Crips and the Eight Tray Gangster Crips. The Rolling 60s controlled prime real estate in South LA. We're talking about the area between Slauson Avenue and Florence Avenue, stretching from Western Avenue toward Crenshaw Boulevard. This was their kingdom. Every corner, every block, every business. They controlled it all. The 60s weren't just a gang. They were an institution. By the 1980s, police estimated their membership in the thousands. Thousands. Let that sink in. Then you had the Eight Tray Gangster Crips. They took their name from 83rd Street, the beating heart of their territory. Their turf ran from Gage Avenue down to Manchester Avenue, bounded by Van Ness and Vermont. The man instrumental in building the Eight Trays was Rafford Miles, better known as Big Sidewinder. Under his leadership, the Eight Trays became one of the most feared and violent gangs in all of Los Angeles. When people heard Eight Tray Gangster, they knew what time it was. But here's the thing that makes this whole story so tragic. These two gangs were once brothers, allies, friends. The Rolling 60s and Eight Tray Gangsters fought side by side against common enemies. They had each other's backs against bloodshed, against rival Crip factions, against anyone who challenged their dominance. Think about that for a second. These were dogs, as they say in the streets. When one set had problems, the other showed up heavy. When the 60s needed backup, the Eight Trays were there. When the Eight Trays went to war, the 60s rode with them. This was real brotherhood, forged in violence and sealed in blood. Throughout the late 70s, both gangs grew stronger together. They weren't just street gangs anymore. They were armies. They had soldiers on every block, money flowing from various illegal enterprises, and a reputation that made even the hardest gangsters think twice before testing them. Sure, there were occasional squabbles between members. That's normal. You got thousands of young men claiming the same alliance. Tempers are going to flare. Maybe a 60 and an 8 tray get into it over a girl. Maybe there's disrespect at a party. Maybe somebody steps on somebody's shoes and things get heated. But these were minor beefs, fist fights, arguments. Nothing that couldn't be handled with a fair one and a handshake afterward. The alliance held strong. The bond seemed unbreakable. Brothers forever. Until March 1979. Now pay close attention, because this is where everything changes. This is where decades of brotherhood gets destroyed in minutes. And it starts with something incredibly ordinary. An after-school fight. March 1979. Somewhere in South LA, a Rolling 60s affiliate has beef with an 8 Tray member. Nothing unusual about that. Disagreements happen. But these are Crips, and they handle their business a certain way. You don't just jump somebody. You don't just shoot somebody over nothing. You square up. You fight. Man to man. As one OG from that era explained it. Homies felt offended. We got to fight Friday after school. We got to fight. You know how it is. Friday afternoon comes around. They meet on the side of Hobart. Both youngsters show up ready to scrap. This is how it's supposed to go down. The 8 Trays and 60s are tight. They're dogs. They're brothers. So there's no need for guns. No need for backup with straps. This is a simple fade. Handle the beef. Squash it. Move on with your life. The 8 Trays representative is a kid named Fatty. Throwing hands with him is Tyrone, whose older brother is Big Rig, a serious OG from the 60s. Big Rig was known as a rider, a moneymaker, a hustler, a thug. But even Big Rig understood. Let the youngsters handle their business. The fight goes down exactly like it should. Both kids throwing hands. Boom, boom. Scuffling on the pavement. Grabbing and swinging. Nothing crazy. Nobody's seriously hurt. Just two young men settling their differences the old-fashioned way. Then everything goes wrong. A fool named Daryl Oakes appears. Now this is important. Daryl Oakes was brand new to 8 Tray. We're talking about 2 days of claiming the set. 48 hours. He didn't understand the code. He didn't know the rules. He didn't comprehend that what he was watching was just feisty cuffs between homies. Nothing more serious than that. But Daryl Oakes came back with heat. A gun. He told Fatty to move out the way, raised that weapon, and opened fire. Dump. Boom, boom. 15-year-old Tyrone Hardman dropped, shot in the head and chest. Another 60s member named Bogart caught one in the stomach. Everyone else scattered, breaking in all directions, trying to get away from the gunfire. Tyrone Hardman, just 15 years old, lay dying on that street. And with his blood, the flashpoint had been struck. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was supposed to be a simple fight between youngsters. But Daryl Oakes, this fool who'd been claiming 8 Tray for 2 days, just murdered a 60s little homie. And not just any little homie, Big Rig's little brother. If you're watching this and you understand street politics, you know what's coming next. You know there's no walking this back, no peace treaty that's going to fix what just happened. Blood has been spilled, and blood demands blood. Almost immediately, and I mean within hours, the two sets fell into open warfare. The 60s came to 8 Tray territory heavy. Big Rig leading the charge. Babyface and other OGs strapped up and ready for war. All they wanted was blood. Shoot or kill whoever shot their brother. That's the only language the streets understand. Now here's where it gets complicated. The 8 Trays weren't protecting Daryl Oakes. In fact, as one 8 Tray member later explained, "We don't know him. We didn't. He just started claiming the hood in 2 days." Think about that. The 8 Trays barely knew this fool. He wasn't an established member. He hadn't put in work. He was essentially a nobody who'd just picked up the flag. But the 60s took it as a sign of disrespect. They believed the 8 Trays were protecting the shooter, refusing to give him up. The 8 Trays threw a massive meeting to try to sort this out. Big Sidewinder was there. Keystone showed up. All the heavy hitters from the 60s rolled through. Big Joe Rat, Mumbles, Mumpy. These were serious OGs trying to squash the beef before it spiraled out of control. But it was too late. The meeting itself became a massive gang fight. Fists flying, people getting stomped out, guns being drawn, the kind of chaos that can't be undone. From that point forward, September 27, 1979, the rolling 60s and 8 Tray Gangsters became immortal enemies. Brothers who once fought side by side now became predators hunting each other through the same neighborhoods they used to protect together. Let that date sink in. September 27th, 1979. That's when LA gang culture changed forever. This internal Crip-on-Crip conflict was absolutely unprecedented. Nothing like this had ever happened before in Los Angeles gang history. Crips fought Bloods. That was the natural order of things. That's what everyone expected. Blue versus red. But Crips killing Crips over internal beef. This was completely new territory. And here's what made it even more devastating. The war forced every single Crip gang in Los Angeles to choose sides. You couldn't sit on the fence. You couldn't claim neutrality. You were either a neighborhood Crip, aligned with the Rollin' 60s, or you were a Gangster Crip, aligned with the 8 Trays. There was no middle ground. Imagine being a Crip from another set, watching these two powerhouses tear into each other. You got homies on both sides. You grew up with cats from both the 60s and 8 Tray. But now you gotta pick. And if you pick wrong, you might end up in a body bag. This split would define LA gang culture for generations. It would spread across the entire country as both sets established chapters in other cities. Even today in 2025, the neighborhood versus gangster division still matters in Crip politics. All because of a 15-year-old kid who got shot after a fist fight. Before we continue with this story, let me remind you, If you're enjoying this deep dive into real American gang history, hit that subscribe button for American Gang War TV. We've got dozens more stories just like this one, and we're constantly bringing you new content that nobody else is covering. Now, let's get back to the bloodshed. November 1979, just 2 months after Tyrone Hardman's murder. An Eight Tray member named Lucky Bell was at the Rosecrans skating rink. For those who don't know, Rosecrans was a popular spot back then. Somewhere you could go to have fun, meet girls, show off your fresh fit. It was supposed to be neutral ground where gangsters from different sets could coexist peacefully. But there's no neutral ground in a war. Lucky Bell is at the rink when he spots a 60s member named Mumpy wearing a distinctive brown jogging suit. They lock eyes, and Mumpy starts yelling at Lucky, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Since one of my homeboys died, one of yours got to die." A fist fight breaks out right there in the skating rink. People scatter. Security eventually breaks it up. Lucky probably thought that was the end of it. He probably figured he'd just avoid Mumpy in the 60s for a while, let things cool down. He was wrong. Later that same day, Lucky is back home, probably thinking he's safe. He's on his porch, his own porch, in his own neighborhood, when he's ambushed. 6 shots to the face. 6. According to multiple witnesses, a man wearing a brown jogging suit was seen fleeing immediately after the shots rang out. 6 shots to the face. That's not just murder. That's a message. That's making sure there's no open casket. That's rage and revenge. Now there's another account from a witness at the skating rink that night that paints an even more chaotic picture. This witness recalled, "We was at the skating ring Sunday night at Rosecrans. The homie from Hoover was talking crazy with a fool from 111. They was beefing at the time. So the fool was sitting on the thing and he was looking at me all mean mugging. He asked me where I'm from." The witness, trying to avoid conflict, claimed neighborhood, knowing these fools were strapped. "So I need to get my gun," he explained. "When I get it, now I can confront him right." So I'm like, "Damn, what you saying?" But lo and behold, he was trying to pull out a shotgun. So I drew my piece on him. "Like you pulling? I'll kill you right here." But come to find out he was from Eight Tray Gangster. The witness continued, "What happened was, we end up leaving. The fool got killed that same night. The score was being settled. Blood for blood. Life for life. That's how the streets work. And this was just the beginning. The Eight Trays weren't about to let Lucky Bell's murder go unanswered. In the streets, if you don't retaliate, you're seen as weak, and weakness gets you killed." December 29th, 1979. Just weeks after Lucky Bell's murder, shots rang out across 60s territory. Multiple people were wounded in the attack. Among the victims was a rolling 60s member named Thomas, better known as Pimp Martin. Pimp Martin was fatally struck. According to street sources, the shooter was a well-known Eight Tray member who came specifically for revenge. After these back-to-back retaliation hits, everyone on the streets knew the truth. This war was just heating up. This wasn't going to be resolved with a sit-down or a peace treaty. This was going to be a long, bloody conflict with bodies dropping on both sides. And they were right. In late August 1980, a 17-year-old Eight Tray gangster named Cedric Diggs, better known as Tit, was ambushed by rolling 60s members. Now, the killing itself was brutal enough, catching a teenage boy, slipping and gunning him down. But what happened next shocked even hardened gang members who'd seen it all. After shooting Cedric Diggs, the assailants reportedly circled back and ran him over as he lay dying in the street. Let me repeat that. They shot this 17-year-old kid, then came back and ran over his body with a car. This wasn't just murder. This was a message. This was a statement of complete and utter disrespect. This was the 60s saying, "We don't just want you dead. We want to desecrate your body. We want to make sure everybody knows what happens when you go against us." The war had reached a new level of brutality, and it was about to get even worse. In the summer of 1980, one of the most infamous incidents in this entire war went down. It involved a young Eight Tray member who would go on to become a legend in LA gang culture. Cody Scott, better known as Monster Cody. According to witness accounts, a rolling 60s hitter named Big Fred set up an elaborate ambush. He used a female named Little Hunchy Girl, who drove Monster Cody to a surplus store. She led Cody and another homie straight into a trap. Monster Cody later recounted the incident in chilling detail. "And I'm going to let his words tell the story because it's one of the most raw, vivid descriptions of a hit you'll ever hear. One guy got a beard and mustache. One guy got a beard. And one guy's clean shaven. But they got dressed like bangers and I don't see no bulges where they might be carrying. So the guy walks up to me and says, 'Aren't you Monster Cody?' I say, 'Yeah, Monster Cody from Eight Tray Gangster. What's up?' Cody's gangster instinct was telling him something was off, but he stood his ground. He wasn't about to show fear. The guy reached into his pea coat, trying to get to his gun, but he couldn't get through because of the button. When he reached in his coat, Little Hunchy ran, leaving Monster alone. Imagine that. The person who drove you there, who you trusted, just abandons you in the middle of an ambush. Monster Cody was truly on his own now. When I look toward Little Hunchy to the left and look back, the guy shoots me in the stomach. Point-blank range, no closer than arm's length, blows me against the wall. The impact doesn't really hurt me at first, but it surprises me. The force blows me against the wall. Now, most people would have collapsed right there. Most people would have given up. But Monster Cody wasn't most people. This is why he earned his name. Out of pure survival instinct, I rushed toward the shooter, trying to grab the gun. He's been shot in the stomach, point blank, and he's still fighting. That's the kind of heart you need to survive in that environment. The shooter shot me in the left hand. My hand hit the wall, and I thought it was blown off. I didn't even look at it. Now I know it's time to go. I turn around and try to run. He shoots me in the back. The bullet knocks me down on my face. I'm dazed. 3 bullets in him now. Stomach, hand, back. But the shooter wasn't done. I'm getting up on my knees and he kicks me in the stomach, kicks me over. I had no alternative but to put my leg up, just try to shield the shot. He shoots me 3 times in the left leg, then they run off. 6 bullets. Monster Cody had been shot 6 times at close range and survived. When Little Hunchy finally came back, after running an entire block, and asked what happened, Monster's response was classic. "Well, damn fool, I'm shot. That's what happened." Monster Cody survived that attack. Years later, he even claimed that Fred Hill came to the hospital in a failed attempt to finish him off. Monster Cody would go on to become one of the most infamous gang members in LA history, later transforming into Sanyika Shakur and writing the memoir, Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member. But that shooting? That was just another chapter in the ongoing war. Hey, we're just getting started with this story, and we're already over 30 minutes in. This war has so many more bodies, so many more tragedies that we need to cover. From 14-year-old Twinkie getting gunned down, to the killing of Opie Thompson and how his death changed everything, to the horrific murder of Joker's mother and little brother, to the mistaken identity killings that took innocent lives. If you want to hear the rest of this story, and trust me, you do, make sure you're subscribed to American Gang War TV and hit that notification bell. Part 2 is coming soon, and we're going to take this story all the way through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and right up to present day. Drop a comment below and let me know. Did you know about this war before watching this video? And what other gang conflicts do you want us to cover? This is American Gang War TV, bringing you the real history of American gang culture. Stay safe out there, and remember, we tell these stories not to glorify violence, but to preserve history and hopefully prevent future generations from making the same mistakes. Peace.